Hi. Thank you for attending today's reading. Let's begin. That time the principal called me out for uploading lesbians as a minor. This happened back in 2018 when I was 15. One day I was out with my friends and I drew a NSFW drawing as a joke. It didn't have nudity or anything hella explicit. Just booby grabbing. So it did have a obvious sexual element to it. And while we were waiting for the bus to come I began shading it. I loved how it turned out so I uploaded it on my Facebook. Thinking it would be funny. The principal of my school called me in his office 2 days later. Telling me that he was going to tell my parents. For anyone wondering how he saw it. At some point I started adding teachers in my friends list and eventually removed them. Turns out I forgot to remove our gym teacher. Oops. I went back in class thinking, I'm F***CKED, because the characters in the drawing were both females. And my parents are extreme homophobes, so I got an anxiety attack in class and began hyperventilating. Thankfully I was close with the teacher we had class with. So she took me out to explain the issue and then took me to talk to the principal again. We made a deal. He wanted me to tell my parents about it myself. He did call my dad and told him to wait something from me. So when he asked about it I narrowed down the story and said I drew 2 girls kissing but one was actually agender because that species of aliens don't have genders, so haha, yeah, you know. It can't be gay now. He saw I was crying and told me to stop being dramatic. Listen. I've heard my parents talk about homosexuality before. I didn't want to deal with it. Single quote. I totally understood that the principal wanted to protect me. I agree minors shouldn't upload any kind of sexual content online since there might be adults who might be using it or try to get close to you using that content. But I was too focused on my other minor friends who were the ones who taught me about those things. I would a lot more appreciate if he just explained it to me himself. As he was really not clear about it. For once the rest of the class was really getting on my side. Talking badly about the principal and pointing out how it's none of his business. It wouldn't be any of his business if we weren't children thinking to be all grown up. But anyway, that's my story. Did you have any similar experiences like this? End of story. Next story. I met a guy who made a child stop crying in literally less than 5 seconds. Some years ago I went backpacking and ended up without a penny. Living on the beach in my tent. Basically stuck in that place. Until one day this guy, let's call him Tom, showed up and offered me to go live with him until I could go live somewhere else. Tom was a very poor guy. He lived in a tiny room with other 2 people, a young guy and his brother. They were no family of him but he took care of them. They did have their own family. Another brother, the youngest, and a sister, the eldest. The youngest brother would live some days with them, and some days with their sister. The little kid had no impulse control whatsoever. It was nearly impossible to stop him from doing what he wanted to do. Words did little with him. But he was no bother. One day they forbid him from doing something. To be honest, I don't remember what. And he started crying. I thought it would be a nightmare because I couldn't think there was anything that anyone could tell him to stop. And he cried really loud, mouth wide open. But in a split of a second Tom put a finger inside his mouth and made him gag. He started again, so he did it again. It was an abrupt stop. Like if the kid had never started crying. Imagine going in your car at 200 miles and then you reach 0 without any kick. Like if you had been parked the whole time. I laughed my ass off. Tom didn't even realize how funny was what he just did. He wasn't mad or trying to be funny. For him it was the logical way stop a child who he knew wouldn't listen to him. Because he would not spank him. End of story. Next story. Bouncing story. Teenager with a firearm. Kid was high. Hey guys. So I am just writing these stories as I can think of them. I am coming to my final year of college. On my final degree. So as my time is coming to an end, I have been reflecting a lot to the past of doing this job for 6 years. I can't wait to move on. But I am also excited to share my stories with all you fine people. This will hopefully give you a look into an industry that I feel is not talked about enough. Even as a college bouncer, I feel that we deal with some awful and funny situations. Anyway, here is my next story, and I'll keep posting for the future. So check out some of my old stories as well. I'll link them at the bottom of the post. Teenager with a firearm. Greater than it's a typical Friday night. Kids are lining up through the doors. And the place starts to get packed. Greater than I just walk in for my shift still wearing my sweatshirt with my security shirt underneath. Greater than big bouncer. We will call him John. Walks up to me and says, "Hey, we got reports of a guy over at these tables having a gun." Greater than John liked to fuck with me, so I just look at him and say, "Fuck off, ha ha ha." Greater than he shakes me and says, "No, I'm being serious." Tables around this guy said he is showing off his gun to his friends. Greater than I had always joked about possibly having to deal with this situation, but I kinda freak out in my head. Greater than I say, "Okay. We gotta go report this to management and deal with this." Greater than everyone is notified in staff. So me, John, our manager, and a bartender all approach this individual. Greater than I start by saying, "Hey man, look, I am a CCW holder. Concealed firearms permit. And as I understand you possibly possess a firearm. We cannot permit this in the establishment. Would you mind just going and stowing it in your car?" Quote. Greater than kid replies, "Oh yeah man. I'll go put it away." Greater than sigh of relief. He walks out and we watch him walk down the block. Greater than 30 minutes goes by. Greater than he returns and I look at him and say, "Okay man, did you put your firearm away?" Quote. Greater than he replies, "Yeah. I stored the firearm in the bushes over there." Greater than in my head I was like, WTF. But I reply, "Okay man, well since you had a firearm, I'm gonna have to have our bouncer John here pat you down to make sure the firearm is not on premises." Greater than he agrees and John proceeds to pat him down. Greater than until John get to about his ankle. John stands up and looks at the kid and says, "Do you think we are stupid?" Quote. Greater than I ask John, "What's the problem?" Greater than John says, "He has the firearm in his sock." Greater than kid says, "What?" and starts backing up. Greater than the gun falls out and thumps to the floor. Greater than me and John look at the firearm kind of in shock. Everything felt like it just stopped. Greater than I immediately withdraw my taser pulse that I tuck in my back belt loop in holster and point it at him. Greater than I arm the taser and the red dot appears on his chest as I say, "Don't move man. John is gonna collect the firearm and we are gonna deal with this." Greater than to my surprise the kid did not move at all. John picks up the firearm and takes it into the bar to give to our manager. Greater than we both yell to our manager to call the cops. Greater than kid seems out of it. Doesn't really say or do much. John returns back to the area the kid is in as I still have my taser pointed at him. Greater than at my manager's request I was told to reholster my taser as the kid is complying. Greater than kid has a backpack on and we requested he take it off as he might have a firearm in there as well. Greater than he complies and gives us the backpack. Greater than one of the bartenders who is in the National Guard is inspecting the gun that fell out from his sock. He removes the clip, has 10 to 9 mm rounds in the clip. Then he racks the slide. One in the chamber. Worst part was it was on red, meaning the gun's safety was off. Greater than this pissed John off as the gun could have easily went off after hitting the floor or he could have easily shot us. Greater than John gets in his face and starts screaming at him. I try pulling him back but I also interject and tell him he makes CCW firearm holders look bad. Greater than this kid didn't flinch nor respond when he was getting screamed at. He had to be on something. It looked like the lights were on but nobody home, kinda situation. Greater than one of the kid's friends while the firearm was getting inspected by our bartender tried to take the backpack and run. Luckily our manager caught it and brought it to the back management office. Greater than after opening up the backpack our manager found another firearm. A bag of what looked like Xanax bars. A fairly large bag of cocaine. And a small pill bottle of marijuana. Greater than we hold this kid in the same exact spot for 5 to 10 minutes. Felt like forever. While we yelled at him in pure rage and adrenaline. Greater than cops finally arrive they collect the evidence. And the kid. Greater than we had a packed bar. And during this whole event everyone was just gathering around watching or trying to leave. Greater than we tried pushing them back but with more focus on the situation. I was pretty disappointed at the lack of intelligence people had over an individual having a firearm and not moving back. Greater than this was at the front entrance and we only had one way in and out so. Greater than anyway. He was collected, police arrested him. He was a 19-year-old kid. He was crying in the back of the cop car as I imagined he finally sobered up and figured it out. Greater than ask an officer a couple weeks later about what happened. Turns out the kid was a drug dealer and was on Xanax at that time. He also was reported to had discharged the weapon at a party during a fight just down the street. Hours before. Greater than as it ends and things clear up me and John look at each other and talk about how easy it would have been for him to pick up the firearm and had shot both of us. I had thought a lot for a couple weeks about that. It ended. And we both lived so that's a plus. Me and John both never had training to deal with this situation before. We did what had to be done. But I cannot stress enough how terrified I was. I wanted to cry after it happened. And for weeks I would have nightmares the same way that I saw a kid die. Check links for that story. It was tragic that drugs and violence took this kid to what I assume was prison. But he did the crime. I have always wanted to be a cop. And I know we are definitely not paid enough to deal with stuff like this. But I'm glad I got to protect everyone that was there that night. All that mattered was that we survived. We protected. And I got to go home and see my girlfriend and dog. Thanks for reading, guys. The 2 posts I have just made are the worst stories I have had. I will probably be posting some more funnier or lighter stories from here on out. But check out the stories below. Thanks. My worst night. Kid died. https www.reddit.com/r/stories/comments/japo35n/bouncing_story_my_worst_night_kid_died/short blondie https www.reddit.com/r/stories/comments/n4brj/bouncer_short_blondie/. End of story. That is all for today. If you want to support my automated channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. See you tomorrow.